albedo. So when we want to find out the total radiation which is falling on the panel, it would be called as global radiation. So it's an addition of all three components: diffuse, direct, and albedo. And obviously the condition of the sky matters a lot over here. This is the example where a clear sky is there, where you can see a smooth curve, and obviously, as expected, the radiation, both global as well as diffuse, will peak at around noon. And you can also see the relation. Rough numbers if you talk about, then the diffuse radiation will be about 10 times, sorry, 10%. But when it goes for a cloudy day, then you can find out the intermittency, and that's why there is a big problem over here, as I've said last time. And that's why you will see in the upcoming lecture that we will have so many imperial equations which generally fit the clear day sky. But however, in practical sense, this never happens, and that's why whatever your prediction, you don't match up with that much of prediction for the power production. So clear and cloudy day. So this cloudy day, handling cloudy day and anticipating the power production is the major problem over here. So next, let us talk about how much radiation actually we get and how this is affected. So this whole exercise will be to calculate the available power at a particular location on a particular day, so that we can use it to find out what is the actual power production. So I forgot yesterday, but let me tell you now. Please have your calculator with you and some scribble book so that you can do some small calculations. Today we need this. So let us start with the concept first. So obviously, as I've said, the solar radiation travels from sun and it tries to enter in the Earth atmosphere. So till it reaches Earth atmosphere, there is no hindrance to it. There is no absorbance. Okay, there is no loss. So whatever the radiation intensity at this particular place, that we will call it as the incident intensity, and of course it depends on the distance, how far we are located. I mean, we means Earth atmosphere, the upper crust of the atmosphere. So it depends on the distance between the sun and the Earth, and obviously it is given by this formula. And with if you can use the Boltzmann blackbody equation I showed you last time, you can find out the value of Hsun, which is a constant, and then R and D are known. You can find out the value of H0, and similarly you can do it for all the planets from the solar system. So this is the graph. You can see as you are moving away from the sun, definitely the solar radiation available at the atmosphere, at the at the planet, is absolutely decreasing. Now, of course, we will be talking about terrestrial applications itself, so really we don't have to worry. But just a passing remark is, now you can understand what is the major challenge when you are going for a space exploration, especially towards the Mars and Jupiter, Saturn. Of course, there are certain space shuttles which even crossed Pluto. But the major problem is, especially when Tesla is thinking that there will be a colony on Mars, you can see the immediate challenge over here as we start moving away from the sun and away from the Earth, obviously. What we see is the Mars surface will receive lesser energy. Even when we try to live there, and we need energy, right? So the energy or the power radiation at Mars surface will be almost less than half. So we either have to double the efficiency of our panels or find out some source which is available on the Mars. So that is one of the challenge. Of course, we are not going into that. What our intention is Earth only. Let us think about our planet right now. So if we calculate this solar radiance at the Earth surface, at the the outermost surface I'm talking about. So we are moving from sun towards the Earth floor, okay, the terrestrial applications. So this comes out to be 1.36 kilowatt per meter square. That is the power which we are receiving. However, if you see the satellite data over the years, what you can see is periodically it's having upper and lower crest. So it varies about by 2 watt per meter square or something like that. And this is happening because of some geographical events, celestial events, rather I can say. It happens also due to the black spots which are available on the sun, so its movement, its production, so many calculations, so many complexities are there. So the point is, here it is not constant, it moves cyclically. So what we can do is we can take average safely, and it comes around 1366, and it matches with whatever the calculations we have. So this solar constant, we are going to call it as AM0, as it is average. It's a solar radiation, and it is taken outside the Earth atmosphere without any hindrance. So it is not yet absorbed by the atmosphere. So this solar constant is called as AM0, and its value is taken as 1366. Some pages, some what you say, books can take it as 1367, but that's okay. So this is called as AM, stands for air mass zero. We will talk about that air mass angle in a while now. But it is in a simple sense, when I say AM0, it is radiation which is outside the Earth's atmosphere, or you can say that it has not entered the atmosphere. It means the air mass which it has experienced is zero. So obviously it means that there is no absorption taken place so far. You can note this formula. Whatever the formula you get, whenever I say, you please note it down, because we require it for some or other calculation. So this ST, solar constant, you can calculate, this S is given to you 1367, and on a particular day you can calculate this ST, where N is the number of day. And again, these are empirical formulas, so there is no derivation for this. So this is what by obtained by curve fitting or so. And these are helpful for us to calculate S on any particular day. So that day is given by N. Normally this N will be used for number of day. So for 1st of January, we calculate it as 1. And then so on. 2nd January is 2. I think January is the 31 day. So February 1st will become 32, and so on. So now when we talk about this solar radiation outside Earth's atmosphere, if we plot that particular formula, or there are certain other formulas also available, don't note this one. This is not important. We are not going to use it. So if we try to plot this power density outside the Earth atmosphere, there are various models. You will see that it is flickering around that 1367. Of course, now this is not the measured one. This is the calculated one by the empirical formulas. But however, there is some variation, and obviously there is a cosine term, so that variation is inevitable. But it is modeling some small changes in the power density, and this power density is fluctuating because of, as I've said, celestial events. Apart from that, what is the condition of the sun's surface? The sun's emitted power is not constant. Also, the Earth and Sun, we say that in general sense that Earth moves in circle around the Earth, but actual orbit is somewhat elliptical, and that's why this change also comes. So this power variation is very small, about 3.4%. So normally we are going to neglect this particular values. So that was just for information. So now AM0, that power density, we put it in number. However, we are not just related or concerned about the number of the power density. We are also should be careful what actually the whole package we are receiving. So you can see here 2 graphs. On left hand side, it is spectral irradiance. So that is watt per meter square. Nanometer. So it is mentioned in terms of the wavelength. Okay, so and when you compare it with the right hand side curve, you can see that the complete spectrum is absolutely, the nature, the what you call it as the presentation or shape, whatever, has changed. And it is because yesterday I showed you one slide that the spectrum is going to bring the energy to us. And obviously every wavelength is bringing some photons, and depending upon how much energy it gives, that is how the right hand side spectral irradiance graph in terms of the photon energy will be changing. And as I said, IR wavelengths will bring around 48% of the total power, and whereas the whole solar, the visible spectrum will bring around, I think, 30–40% or so. And out of this, you will find out obviously red photons will bring more energy, although their individual photon energy would be smaller. Blue are important for us because they bring more energy. However, their number is less as compared to the red photons. So number of photons and how much energy in total they bring, that is also important. So now that radiation we have calculated at the Earth, atmosphere. Now our job is to calculate it at Earth surface, where we are actually going to put the panels so that it can absorb the radiation. So obviously Earth atmosphere is made up of so many things, and because of that the reach of this radiation is going to be decreased. The number of 1367, out of that a few radiations will get absorbed, and there are variety of reasons for this. First of all, majorly the atmospheric effect. It may be due to absorption, scattering of because of the dust, clouds, whatever, local variation in the atmosphere. So you can understand that the atmosphere throughout the Earth globe is not the same. In some places you will have more humidity. In while some places are quite dry. So even the clouds, the pollution levels, all are going to different. So these are the local phenomena that is going to change. Latitude of the location. Suppose you are at some Antarctica or Arctic, some polar stations, the solar radiation will be absolutely quite different as compared to when you are on, let us say, equator. Okay, and then the season of the year and the time of the day. As I've said, location and the time will be the crucial factors to govern this availability of social radiation. And obviously, you know, because of seasons, the Earth is alive. That's why we are able to live. Okay, so this amount of energy which is reaching the surface Earth everywhere is, if you calculate how much energy we get, per hour, what we get is more than what is the energy used by the complete total population over entire year. And that is the potential. Literally, I mean, this is a literal term, that this is what the potential is. But however, where are the problems? Everywhere you cannot put the panels because of the conditions I have said about what's 60–70% Earth is made up of the sea, so the land is limited. Then again we have to live, and you can also see that rather I would comment here, Odisha is not real real contender in the installation for this ACZs or power zones, power economic zones. Why? Because Odisha is one of the highest these forest areas we have, about 30–33%. So of course, when we have to install the panels or we have to install the such a large power plants, we have to clean the area, and that is also one major problem. So there are various reasons. Of course, we cannot use the complete potential, but still it is much higher than the wind. And there is another thing. See, if I give you a map, if we let us talk about nearby areas. The solar panel, if I install at both the places, the radiation received will be more over the same. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it is a hilly area, whether it is on the plain, doesn't matter. However, when you compare this to the wind, there is a problem. in wind, most of the time, if you install the wind, you cannot do it, everywhere. You have to be in a very acute location. Although the map shows that, over the entire district you can put, but out of that district, probably you might be choosing the places which are hilly, where you will get higher wind. You will not choose the valleys, although it is a part of the map. So these are the differences when we go for wind. Now, as I've said, the solar radiation, when comes down, so many effects are eating up that radiation, and we can actually count those. So that reduction is power due to, as I said, absorption, scattering, reflection, and whatnot. So there is a spectral change as well. The AM0 spectrum, what I showed, changes completely due to this absorption, because again, understand the point. If we talk about the cloud, dust, or pollution can be, SO2, NO2, and so many other components. So my point is, these are all materials, and every material has got unique absorption capability. So when we are putting this spectrum, they will not absorb everything everywhere. Rather, they will be very specific or for a particular wavelength. So that's why there is a change in spectral content. So reduction of power is not the scaling. Okay, so the shape of content itself is going to change. Then there is a introduction of diffuse or indirect component, which I have said, and local variations are always there. So roughly, if I have to give the idea, let us start from the top where the sun radiation enters. So it will be, we are taking it as 100%, and then every layer of the atmosphere is going to absorb something, and also it is going to scatter. So some of the scattering will be upwards towards the space, so that also is wastage. However, which is scattered back to earth, some of them it can be counted later. So scattered is about 7%, and whatever is the available to us is about 70%. So this is the, in simple sense, we are paying the tax for the middleman. And if we get, let us say, 1,000 over here, 1,000 watt per meter square, what we are going to get is about 700 watt per meter square. So atmosphere is going to eat up most of the thing. And as I was telling that, depending upon the location and whatnot, the absorption spectra is going to change. So this is the example of that. You can see this yellow line, yellow part of this. So that is the actual spectrum. Okay. So now we want to, if we want to model it, so it can be modeled by taking temperature 5250, and we can have that black dot spectrum, so that you can see that it is more or a smooth curve. Now, what happens? This yellow spectrum is the actual one, and red spectrum is what we get. Okay, so all this reduction is because of the absorption happening at in various gases, in various polluting agents and whatnot. And you can see that a particular gas is absorbing at a particular wavelength. So O2, you can see a sudden dip around 750. H2O is being absorbed at many places. So there are dips at the corresponding points. So this is actually how the spectrum available on the terrestrial or on the Earth's surface is going to change because of this. The cleaner the environment, obviously, it will try to match up with the actual available spectrum. So we have already talked about air mass. So obviously, you can see air mass AM0 was something which was available outside the Earth atmosphere. So nothing has yet been absorbed. Okay. So if we have to define this air mass, we can define it as the path length which that light is going to take when it enters the atmosphere, and when we are normalizing to the shortest path length. So shortest path length would be when the sun is directly overhead us. So it means if we try to draw the line, so you can check over here, if this is the panel that we have, so exactly above will be the air mass. So in this case, this angle theta, what the sun is making, because now the sun will be over here, and whatever the angle that sun is making is theta will be equal to 0. So obviously, if you find out AM, it will become only 1 when it is absolutely at the top. But this is when we are talking about what we receive at the panel. So you have got AM0 outside the atmosphere. When it is exactly above the head, it will become AM1, and the angle what the sun subtend to with the vertical, that we are going to call it as theta, or we are going to call it as the zenith angle or the vertical angle. So when the sun is directly above, AM is 1, and this AM basically, this term is coming to indicate how much is the reduction in the power which is going to happen as this distance increases. So you can see here, if it is exactly overhead, this is the distance that radiation has traveled in the atmosphere. But obviously when the theta increases, this length is going to increase, and as obvious, if the length increases, the absorption is going to increase. So as theta increases, the absorption is going to increase. So can you calculate the zenith angle for air mass 1.5? Somebody quickly. M is equal to 1 by cos theta. So we want AM 1.5. What should be the angle theta? Can you please do it quickly? Biswas Kashyap, what's the answer?
48.1.
Yes, 48.1.
Biswas Kashyap.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got the answer? Siddhant Guru?
Yes, sir.
Siddhant Guru?
Yes, sir.
49 approx, sir.
Yeah, okay. Shreyas Patel? Shreyas Patel? Absent? Good. Omkar Das? Omkar Das?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pruthak Swine? Pruthak?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Gaurav Pranami? Gaurav Pranami?
Yes, sir.
You're there? Okay. Yes, Sharma?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So I think you have got the number. Okay. So let me go back to the slides. So yes, 48 point something, that is what the angle. Now why I have asked you particularly AM 1.5, because that is what we will be taking into account as the time progresses. You will understand why. So we can also calculate the intensity based on this air mass. Please don't write this formula as of now. So intensity of direct, D stands for the direct solar radiation. So as I've said, this particular radiation estimation is a, in itself is a, what you say, very interesting topic. Especially, I think AI and machine learning can also do some good over here, because we have, everybody is presenting a different model, and then you can have hundreds of empirical formulas if you go through the journal paper. But this one, just to give you the essence, that the direct solar radiation can in fact be calculated using AM or air mass. This A is small a is empirically fitted, so 0.14, and H is the location of the height. So you can understand that as the height changes, your intensity of the direct solar radiation is going to change. And once you get this direct solar radiation, we know that the global is direct plus diffuse. Forget about the albedo part. And again, if we assume roughly that the diffuse radiation is about 10% of the direct one, we can simply calculate the global IG is about 1.1 times the ID. Again, these are empiricals. Now this is the complete picture. Probably here this slide will help you to understand everything what I've talked in last 10 minutes or so. So you can see sun is there somewhere at the top, radiation came, and at the boundary we are getting AM0. Now suppose it enters absolutely vertically to the location here, then it becomes AM1. When it goes, when the sun is at some angle, so that is the angle theta what we have made, so it will become, depending upon whatever the angle, AM. Let us say if it is 49, it will become, this will become AM 1.5. But remember, this is what being received on the Earth. Fine. And then, as I've said, when it enters, there will be some scattering, there will be some absorption, and it will reach to the Earth's surface. So one which is coming directly, that what we call it as the direct radiation. Then we have got diffused, and then we have got whatever the reflection from the Earth's surface, we are going to call it as the albedo. So our panels will be on the Earth's surface somewhere over here. So this is the concluding slide of whatever the geometry and whatever the atmospheric effects I have talked about. So now if we are again interested in the values, right? So you can see AM0, we call it as now extraterrestrial, available at the atmosphere. That number we have fixed 1367. So there is some typo, 1367. When AM1, you can see that it is reduced somewhere around 1105, and you can understand AM 1.5 comes out to be around 1000. Now, so this is 1000 watt per meter square. So I think you can guess that why we have chosen this AM 1.5, because first of all, on an average, we get somewhere around 1000. Of course, this is not the fixed number, okay? Depending upon, as I've said, various factors, it will change. But roughly, you will get 1000 watt per meter square. And 1000 is a good number for calculation, okay? That is the another, what you call, the advantage. And when it is AM 1.5, the angle is about 48. So that is overall, you know, it is sitting in between 0 to 90. So this is the average angle that we get. So because of such a some small reasons, and the number itself, 1000 watt per meter square, will be 1 kilowatt per meter square. That is what we like. So that's why we fix it as AM 1.5. So of course, when you increase that angle about 60, the things are going to go down, and that is why you can understand when we go towards the polar, the value of solar radiation will be much lower, and when you integrate over the year, this will be much smaller. And that's why I appreciated Europe, because they get less energy compared to us, solar energy, but they are much more ahead of us. It is probably because of the awareness. That is what I credit for. Okay, so the standardization, that is what we require, because at every place these numbers will be different, and ultimately we have to test it. So you already know the standardization, IEEE standardization, or it may be IEI standardization. Similarly, here also we require it. I also talked about NREL when they register that record for efficiency of a solar cell. NREL only does that, right? So it will be under laboratory conditions. So they are very much standard conditions. So here we need to standardize the solar spectrum, so that basic calculation will be uniform. So this efficiency is definitely sensitive to both what is the power coming as well as the spectrum itself. Spectrum means if you are changing the source, let us say you are changing from xenon lamp to incandescent lamp, the spectrum absolutely is going to change. Okay, so that's why we should standardize this. And as I've said, AM 1.5 is the standard spectrum that we are using. You can download that data. Simply if you search for AM 1.5, you can get the Excel file and you can get all the numbers. Now, of course, global, that AM 1.5G will include both direct as well as diffuse radiation, and AM 1.5D will give you the direct radiation only. So as per the standard AM 1.5G, this is standardized as 1 kilowatt per meter square. So this is what how we can calculate the value of H. Of course, we will do that at the end of the chapter. We will actually calculate what you call it as the radiation which is received at a particular place. But for that, we should understand where the position of the sun is. And that's why the sun-earth movement is vital over here, so that we can not only decide the zenith angle, we can also decide some other angles which we are going to see. So first few slides you have already studied probably in geography, 8th, 9th and 10th standard. Those who feel that history and geography is not important for what you call engineering, they will understand that you people are wrong. Okay, so see here. Of course, we know sun-earth movement, and that is also called as the apparent motion of sun. Earth rotates around the sun. Of course, for us doesn't matter because whatever sun around, even if you call sun rotates around Earth, doesn't matter. We are interested in the angle. Okay. But anyway, so this is not the perfect circle. It is a bit elliptical, and the eccentricity is around 0.02, and that is why the as I've said, the what we receive exactly is a bit different than if we assume it has to be circle. So for this moment, we require certain important definitions over here. So celestial, all these bodies which are heavenly bodies, whatever you call it as, in the outer space, all the are called as celestial objects. Equinox, equi means equal. So when day and night are of equal length, we call it as equinox day. These are the milestones, okay, because this movement will be all year around. So you can say it as 360 degrees. So these are the important milestones that will help us to understand. So similarly, the solstice, it is when sun reaches its highest or lowest point in the sky at noon. So when it is the lowest point, we will call it as the shortest day. When it goes to highest, we will call it as the longest day. So solstice is becoming longest and the shortest day in the, and it is happening all because of the seasonal variations. So then longitude, because we are also interested in the location where we have to calculate the angle. So longitude is the imaginary lines which is going through bisecting the north and south poles. So they run vertically. Latitude, these are the parallel to the equator. The equator will be 0. Rather, latitude is more important for us than the longitude. But whenever we say that we have to define a place, obviously we need both. Then there is a meridian. Meridian is the circle of constant longitude passing through a given place on the Earth's surface and the terrestrial poles. And last one is the ecliptic. So this is the again imaginary line that the sky on the sky that marks the annual path of the sun. So in a simple sense, let us say tomorrow, if you observe the sun, it will rise in the east at a particular location, and then it will set in the west at a particular place. So this path is for one day. So if you observe this over the year, and you will find out that the sun position is not the same. It is every day, literally, it is changing its position, where it rises and where it sets down. And in our Indian culture, we call it as Uttarayan and Dakshinayan. So Uttarayan means it will start moving towards the towards north. So slowly the summers will come, and when it starts the Dakshinayan going towards the south, we know that now the temperatures will go down, and so when it is at extreme south, we have cold in India, and when it is at extreme north, we will have the summer or hotter seasons. So this is the importance for us. So if we try to imagine, now we have to start imagining the angles. If you wish, you can draw whatever diagrams simultaneously with me. It will be good for the practice. So here is the line, that is the rotation axis we can take between north and this pole. So this is the celestial equator, and then as you know that the Earth is little bit tilted, and that's why we have that small axis tilt, or we call it as obliquity. So the plane of the sun, so whatever plane parallel to the Earth's celestial equator and through the center of the sun, that is what the planes we are going to consider. So you can see that there is a small tilt angle, and that we call it as the declination angle. So these angles and its notation you will be always noting down, and probably if possible you also note down the definitions, because there are at least 7 or 8 angles or more than that will be coming up, so you should not get confused. So this declination angle is the angle created due to the tilt of the Earth during the rotation around the sun. So already that there is a tilt, and when it rotates, this is going to change. So this, or otherwise we can also define angle between the equator and the line drawn from the center of Earth to the center of sun. I will demonstrate it with the animation to you, and then there are other definitions as well. So let us try to define it. Sun declination angle delta. This is the Earth, North Pole, and then we have got this equator, so that is 0. Tropic of Cancer is in North Hemisphere, and let us say we are located at the Tropic of Cancer. Let us say we are somewhere here. So we can make one plane over here, and sun is here, so it is sending the radiations, and which is perpendicular to this particular plane. So now this we can extend it to the center of the Earth. So that is how we are getting the parallel rays. So whatever the angle what we are making with this equator, and that because of this location what we are considering, this is called as the delta. Now obviously most of the countries are in the northern hemisphere, so that's why I have shown like this. And for this, the sun declination angle delta will be 23.5. Obviously this is a summer solstice. It means the sun will be on Tropic of Cancer in the summer, and that is where that is the highest point where it will go. Then after that it will start retreating towards the south. So it has got the maximum delta which is possible is 23.5. So see, as we are talking about the northern hemisphere, similarly we can talk about the southern hemisphere. So the extreme now will be at the Tropic of Cancer, and as it is symmetric, you expect the value of delta to be minus 23.5, which will occur at on the winter solstice. So if you talk about the range, the delta can only vary between plus minus 23.5. So now this particular moment, if we have to think and if we want to find out the date, this particular image will help you. So let us start at March 20. Now March 20 is equinox. It means the day is equal. So obviously delta will be 0 at that particular location. And then when we go towards what you call it as the June to March to June. So June 21 is the solstice. So that is the longest day that we have, and at that time delta will be obviously maximum 23.5. If we move further, again we will have another equinox, that will be September 22, and if we go further, we will have the December or the winter solstice, which is occurring at December 21. So that is supposed to be the shortest day on the Earth. Now a quick question. I think most of you know that on Christmas normally people will make those what we call it as this ice dolls and whatnot. Okay, and that is what the pictures you see. If you have seen the Hollywood movies and all that, whenever there is a Christmas, they always show that ice and all that. But can you tell me any country where Christmas is celebrated but there is absolutely no ice?
Australia.
Yes, Australia.
Australia.
Why? Because it is in the absolutely different zone, different hemisphere. So this is what happens if Australian is watching a US movie, Hollywood movie. The picture depicted of the Christmas is absolutely wrong. What they actually experience, right? So this is the magic that will happen. Also, because of this movement, what happens is. You can do what you can do is you can celebrate the new year multiple times. So if you start traveling in the direction of the sun, then you can say that you can celebrate the new year or your birthday or whatever a particular day multiple times, because the time zone which you will be in will be different. But of course that those zones we have made for our own convenience. India has got one zone. However, in US you will find out 5. In Russia, I think there are 9 or 11 zones or something, and sometimes it may create problems. But can you tell me as an electrical engineer? Why? What is as an electrical engineer? Okay, what is the importance of this time zone? Anyone?
Sir, probably the demand and supply of power, because it varies during the day and night times.
But why it varies? That's the point. I mean, you are right, but why?
So it depends on the countries, I guess. Many countries.
So let us talk about one country. Yeah, we are talking about time zones in a country, not in the world.
So usually during the day there are industries are running, more power is consumed, and then at night time, and plus
So,
solar
no,
also.
you are not
We
specific.
get the more power.
Anyway, I'll explain.
Sir,
So suppose,
sir,
yes.
is it because of the amount of time that we get illumination?
Yes, absolutely right. It's yes, that's the correct one. So that example, if I were to give you in Arunachal Pradesh, okay, normally the morning, I mean, the sunrise will be around 4:30 or something. Now see, our office timings are what, 9:30 or 10, right? So for a person who is in Arunachal Pradesh, he has to wait for 5 hours. So he's wasting his precious sunlight, right? And the worst part is, when on the west coast, let us say in Mumbai, sunset will be around 7 o'clock. Arunachal Pradesh, sunset is around 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So he has lost the thing. So this illumination and utilization of the sun energy, that is what the one of the concern is. And then also what happens is, that illusion. So if he is talking to a guy in Mumbai, he will say that, just it's afternoon, and whereas it will be absolutely evening in Arunachal Pradesh. But then you can imagine how much bigger this problem would be in Russia or in US or in Canada. Okay, so these time zones are somewhat interesting stuff. Okay, by the way, I made one statement that sun rises from the east and sets in the west. Is that correct statement? Hello? Hello? Hello, anybody there? Madhusudan Barban. Madhusudan Barban. Madhusudan absent. Anuj Gaur.
Present, sir.
Attendance नहीं ले रहा हूँ मैं. Answer the question. What is that interference? Yeah. Anuj, you are there?
Yes, sir.
What is the answer to the question? You don't know the question, correct?
Yes.
You don't know, right? Yeah, okay, no issue. So my question is, I made a statement, sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Is that a correct statement?
So,
Yes, I think everybody agrees, right? Yeah, okay. Now, can it happen that sun will rise in the west? Is it possible on Earth under normal circumstances? Okay, is it possible? Anyone wish to comment?
Sir, in polar regions.
What polar region sun rises in the west?
No, sir. As the Earth moves westwards, it may seem that the Earth is rising in the west.
No, I don't think so. Okay, anyway, keep this question in mind and tell me in the next lecture. Fine. Okay, we'll move ahead. So this delta is going to move between plus minus 23.5. So this variation of deceleration, if you have to, now again you have to find out empirically, right? So this is the formula you can note down. So again, n is the day of the year, and if you plot it, this is what the variation we will get, and you can find out that these are the four are the extreme points of the equinox and the celestial positions. So if you substitute n equal to 1, then you can find out the delta for January 1. So it will be roughly what? Roughly 20 something minus 20 something it will come up. Okay. So you have noted this. Fine. Of course, I will distribute the slides, but still better if you note down, because these formulas you require very frequently henceforth, at least for this chapter. Okay. Fantastic. So obviously, this twice it will become this declination will become 0, and that will be on the equinox at the equinox. Okay. Now next is the latitude angle phi. So this is the angle between when you are drawing a line from the point on Earth's surface where we are locating the panels to the center of the Earth. So that is one line, and the Earth's equatorial plane. So let us think of that. So this is the equator, North Pole is shown, and let us say latitude. So these are the horizontal lines to the equator. So if we are talking about this particular position, so this angle made is the latitude angle. So you can simply get this particular angle phi if we know the latitude longitude of that thing. So Tropic of Cancer, obviously it will be 23.45, and Tropic of Capricorn will be about minus 23. Can you understand why I have taken this 22? Any guesses? So this is the place, this is for the Rourkela, okay? And then, of course, we have got certain places where the Tropic of Cancer is passing. So it crosses from, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and all that. And these particular places are of importance in the Hindu culture. Of course, why? Because most of the time sun is being praised, and this Tropic of Cancer is geographically significant to us because it affects our life. So latitude of Rourkela, if you talk about, it is around 22.26. Okay, so you can find out the latitude or longitude of your place. Okay, so keep that in your notebook because I might ask some questions on that. Okay, next one is the hour angle. As I've said, the sun moves from east to west, and when we talk about these angular distances between the meridian of the observer where you are located and the meridian whose plane contains the sun. So let us try to describe this. So let us say this is north. You can draw this simultaneously because this would be a bit complex diagram. So you can have this tilted north axis, then we have got perpendicular equator to it. There is meridian of the observer. As I told, meridian will be perpendicular to the equator, right? So then we have got, let us say, at some point on this meridian, we have got observer. Then sun is at some places, and then the rays are coming like this. So we already know that this angle should be equal to delta on that particular day, and whatever it cuts, this equator is making the angle with the observer where the plane is containing. So you can find out this is the angle phi. So in a simple sense, if you note that this is the hour angle, it means in a simple sense, it gives you the local time. So, for example, if the sun is absolutely at the on your head, the angle right now what sun is making will be 0 for you. So this phi is the latitude, and then this angle, how much sun has gone, it will be called as the hour angle, which is denoted by the omega. So I will try to draw the same diagram in the top view, 2D view, so it will be better for you. So you can see that this is the observer, this is the place of the observer. Then with respect to equator, whatever this angle is, the omega. So now obviously we know that we are divided the whole day into 360 degree and corresponding to 24 hours. So obviously every hour will have 15 degrees in between them. So if you try to plot this variation of the angle, hour angle with respect to the daytime, you will get that the hour angle, as I've said, will be 0 when the sun is overhead. Okay, now again you understand that there are 2 times we will be talking about. Right now what we are talking about is the local time, and this local time is determined by the position of the sun. So whenever the sun is overhead, we call it as 12 noon. However, that may or may not match with your watch time, because your as I said, the time zone is based uh, on the meridian which is passing through a particular city of the choice of the country. So it means that whatever time at that place, it will be followed by the whole country. So obviously at that particular place, this local time and the actual Indian Standard Time will be the same. However, as if we talk about Mumbai or Arunachal Pradesh, it will be obviously different. So depending upon the physical position of the sun and the watch position, these two will be different. So here we are talking about is the angle which is made by the sun. So that is what I was talking, the solar noon. So time of the day at which the sun rays are directed perpendicular to a given line of latitude. So this will be the direct angle of the radiation. So at that time, obviously, we are expected that we will get the maximum solar radiation, and that is why you will also, if you visit any solar power plant, you will understand that during 11 to 1, roughly talking, the plant will produce almost 70% of its power. Okay, so again, but the point is how much radiation you receive. It depends on atmospheric factors. So if the owner has to pray, he will pray that no clouds will come in between, somewhere between 11 to 1 or so. Why? Because then if a cloud comes, the loss will be much higher. Okay, so solar noon, where you will get the maximum direct radiation. So obviously this hour angle will be 0 at the solar noon when the sun will be reached at the sky. So at this particular time, the sun is said to be due south or due north. Now it depends on which hemisphere you are in. So if now we know that the movement of the sun is from south to north between for the whole year. So if we are in the north, we will say that it is due south, or if we are in the southern hemisphere, we will say it as due north. Okay, the importance of this due south and due north, I will explain when we talk about how do we position and angle the solar PV panels. Okay, so at this particular time, it's almost 6:10. I will stop. There are so many other angles as well. So you first you revise all these angles, and later in our next lecture, we will continue with the remaining angles, and we will try to solve some numericals, and we will try to estimate the actual values of this the radiation what we receive. Okay, so any quick questions or answer to my question when I say that can you see a sun rising in the west?
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, in slide number 44, you mentioned that the efficiency of a solar cell depends on 2 things, power and spectrum of source. Sir, but aren't these
output to be correct? It's not the efficiency, rather it should be output. Efficiency will always remain the same. Okay, it's the output.
Okay, sir, but aren't these 2 factors interconnected? I mean, if we change the spectrum,
Yes.
the power is bound to change. And if we
Yes,
change
they
the power,
are.
it
Yes,
means...
they are.
Yes.
Yes, they are. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. That's the reason I told. If I replace the xenon lamp with, let us say, incandescent lamp, Okay, maybe of different power. The spectrum is also different. Okay, so things are going to change.
Okay, sir.
See, it's not only that how much power you receive, it also depends on how you receive it. For example, if let us say, all the blue photon comes for the all the power is given by only blue photon for a silicon cell, what will happen? Blue photons are roughly more than 1.1, so all that will be losses, absolutely losses. But somehow I give the photons which are exactly 1.1, however the lesser power content, still overall output, if you say, it will be better than the only blue photon, blue emitting source. Are you getting my point? Okay, that's why the number
Yes,
of
sir.
photons and which photon is coming, I mean of the which wavelength, both are important to us. And when we are talking about spectrum, we have got both the number of photons as well as of what wavelength these photons are being received. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Anything else? Pradipta Rahul, Pradipta Ranjan Rahul.
Yes, sir. Present.
अटेंडेंस नहीं ले रहा हूँ भाई मैं, मतलब that is the secondary objective. So any questions?
No, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir.
No. Okay, good. So ठीक है. Thank you all. Good night. Bye.